Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After I think 3 weeks of, let's say, forced holidays, somehow, pause, we come back to finish the chapter on Zakah. Hope you had good time, that you had, that you used this time to review the lessons, inshallah. And to Bilal and I don't remember who else asked questions. I told you that I would answer in this lesson, but I think I have too much to cover because I want to finish the chapter on Zakah. So I will take time to answer it, not here, but to write it to you. And then I will see if, because I don't remember the question exactly, but if what you misunderstood was because I did not explain it clearly or just because the question is complicated. And then I will see if I come back to the next lesson to be sure that it's clear for everyone. Inshallah. So we start directly, inshallah. باب في زكاة الماشية بعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله الصادق الوعد الآمين ثم بعد يقول المصنف رحمه الله نفعنا به دارين آمين باب في زكاة الماشية وزكاة الإبل والبقر والغنم فريضة لا زكاة من الإبل في أقل من 5 ذود وهي 5 من الإبل ففيها شاة جذعة أو ثنية من جل غنم أهل ذلك البلد من ضأن أو معز إلى 9 ثم في العشر شاتان إلى 14 ثم في 15 3 شياه إلى 19 فإذا كانت 20 فأربع شياه إلى 24 ثم في 25 بنت مخاض وهي بنت 2 سنين فإن لم تكن فيها فابن لبون ذكر إلى 35 ثم في 36 بنت لبون وهي بنت 3 سنين إلى 45 ثم في 46 حقة وهي التي يصلح على ظهرها الحمل ويطرقها الفحل وهي بنت 4 سنين إلى 60 ثم في 61 جذعة وهي بنت 5 سنين إلى 75 ثم في 76 بنت لبون إلى 90 ثم في 91 حقتان إلى 20 و100 فما زاد على ذلك ففي كل 50 حقة وفي كل 40 بنت لبون. Okay, this is the part on the camels, but first, okay, here Ibn Abi Zayd, as you notice, he made one chapter for the Zakah on livestock. He separated it from the rest of the Zakah. Firstly, because he is following actually the books of Hadith, that where you have one dedicated chapter from the Zakah on the Mashia, on the livestock, but also because the way it works is different from the Zakah on the farm products and on money. So it's only on camels, cattle and sheep or goats. It's only these kinds of animals, and if you have other animals that you have as livestock, you will not give zakah on it in our school. And when you have animals that are a cross between one of these, so one of these kinds and the savage kind of the same thing, let's say a cow and maybe some kind of what we call wahshi of the cow. I don't know exactly what it would be in English, but it's basically there's the one which is domestic and the one which is free living in the anywhere. But what we must understand in that is, for example, for the horses, when they say wahshi, or let's say mules or a donkey, when they say the wahshi, the savage donkey, it's like a zebra. So we would need to have a look at what is exactly intended by the wahshi in such a case. But that would be really relevant for someone who would have this kind of beast. Or, yeah, maybe someone who has a zoo, Allahu a'lam. So when you have a cross between a domestic and a wahshi, then there is no zakah on it according to the mu'tamad. And you have weak opinions saying that if the mother is domestic, then there is zakah. But the mu'tamad is that it's not the case. And there is no difference in the madhab between the animal being staying in the, I don't know how we call that, the kind of house where you put the animals, and between animals that are eating directly the grass outside. I mean, in the, let's say if you are in the mountain, somewhere in the fields here and there, there is no difference between, and I think the Shafi'is, they say there's only zakah on the animals that are eating freely anywhere, you know, not that you keep under your house and that you feed yourself. Okay, but in the madhab, all the animals from these categories, you give the zakah on it. So the text, Ibn Abi Zayd, okay, this, what I read is just actually him mostly detailing the categories. So he says, zakah on camels, cattle, and sheep or goats is obligatory. There's no zakah on camels fewer than 5 those, that is 5 camels. If there are from 5 to 9 camels, those of camels, okay, let's say 5 to 9 camels, the zakah is 1 young sheep or goat, whichever is the most common in the local in its 2nd year. So here we call it a shah. Remember, keep that in mind. A shah. A shah can be a jad'a or a thaniya. And you find these 2 words in the text actually. And it's a shah. It's so a young sheep or goat that entered in its 2nd year, whether it just entered or little bit more in the 2nd year, maybe 1.5 years or something like that. So you could give one of these 2, actually at your choice, and it can be a sheep or goat, or a he sheep or goat, can be male or female, and whichever is the most common in the local in its 2nd year. That if you give a sheep instead of a goat, or if you give a camel instead of it, then it will be permissible, because you're giving something which is better, and sheep are considered better than goats. I think most probably because there's more meat, and maybe it's considered as better meat, I don't know. And of course a camel is much bigger, so it's of course better to give it. And there's a general rule here, is that you can give what is better in the zakah. You can give what is better, it will be valid. And when you owe more than 1 shah, you cannot give a camel. Then you have to stick to what is obligatory. And then he says, if there are 10 to 14 camels, the zakah is 2 sheep or goats. So this is first category, 5 to 9. Second category, 10 to 14. Then 15 to 19 camels, the zakah is 3 sheep or goats, 3 shah, 3 shiyah, if you want to have it in mind. The singular is shah, then you have shatan, if you have 2, and you have many, it's shiyah. You would write it shin, ya, alif, ha, and you spell it, I don't know, S-H-E-Y-A-H, something like that. Then 20 to 24 camels, you give four Shia. After that, if there are 25 to 35 camels, the zakah is a female camel whose mother is pregnant, that is, a female in its second year. If there is no such young camel in the herd, then a male camel whose mother is giving milk should be selected. Okay, so the first one we mentioned here, the female one is bint makhad. Bint makhad. And as he says, basically it's the one who entered, she entered her second year. So she finished the first year and she's in her second year. And if there's not, then you can go to the Ibn Laboon, and he explained what it is, okay, whose mother is giving milk. So it's basically both of are in the second year. But if you have neither, no female, no male at that age, then the sa'i, a sa'i is the one coming to take the animals. Okay, we talked about it in the zakat al-hirth, I think. So the sa'i will obligate the owner of the animals to give a bint makhad. But if the owner first comes with an Ibn Laboon, he bought it somewhere, for example, then the sa'i can accept. If the sa'i asks a bint makhad and the owner brings a Ibn Laboon, the sa'i can accept. He can accept. When he first asked for a bint makhad and the owner came with a Ibn Laboon. Now, if the owner comes in the first place with Ibn Laboon, before the sa'i asked for the bint makhad, then the sa'i will have to accept, because it's as if the owner already had a Ibn Laboon in the end. So then, if there are 36 to 45 camels, the zakah and not the tax. And interestingly, a brother, may Allah protect him and give him the best, I think in some occasions, for Ibn Ashir lessons, I was looking at, I was not sure about the translation of zakah, so I was asking, do we say tax, do we say what? And he mentioned that Sheikh Rami Mansour, in his lessons, and I forgot this, that he said that actually, even if I followed these lessons, I think twice, is that it's not permissible to call the zakah tax, because the taxes are impermissible. Any taxes, the only permissible thing is the zakah. Any other taxes are forbidden in the Sharia, and if you can find a way to escape them, you have to. Actually, you have to. Whether or not it's an obligation from the state you live in, whatever, if you can, I don't know, have an account, offshore account in the Marshall Islands or whatever, you can find a way not to pay the taxes, you don't pay the taxes, because it's impermissible, okay, to take, and therefore you should do your best not to help them taking something, doing something impermissible, even if they are disbelievers. Okay. Let's come back to our lesson. So the zakah is one female camel whose mother is giving milk. So the name of this one is bint Laboon. So we have the bint makhad and the bint Laboon. The bint Laboon has entered her third year. Then 46, if there are 46 to 60, the zakah is a hiqqah. That is a female camel which can carry a burden on its back and can copulate with a male. In other words, in its fourth year. Nothing to add. Okay, that's the nothing to add as what is intended by a hiqqah. If there are 61 to 75 camels, the zakah is a young female that is one in its 5th year. Yeah. Nothing to add again. 76 to 90, you give 2 bint laboon. The bint laboon is the one who enter her 3rd year, as we just said. Where were I? If there are 2 female camels whose mother are giving milk, yeah. If there are 91 to 120 camels, the zakah is 2 hiqqah. For any number of camels over this, a hiqqah is paid for every 50, or for every 40 a female camel whose mother is giving milk. Okay, so here we then have a rule to calculate after 120, because as I said, so between 91 to 120 included, 2 hiqqah you give. After that, okay, for every 50, 1 hiqqah, for every 40, 1 bint laboon. So for between 120 to 129, according to the mashhur, the sa'i has the choice between 2 hiqqah and 3 bint laboon. This is the opinion of Imam Malik, and Ibn al-Qasim had another opinion. I did not write it, but he had another opinion, Ibn al-Qasim. So he has a choice, 2 hiqqah or 3 bint laboon. 2 hiqqah because it's following the previous category, so 91 to 120, and because it's twice 50, so you have 2 hiqqah, and 3 bint laboon because it's 3 times, it's more than 3 times 40, you see. Then for 130, you would give 1 hiqqah and 2 bint laboon, because 130 is actually 90 plus 50. 90, well, no, 80 plus 50. So that makes 40, 40 and 50, so 2 bint laboon, 1 hiqqah. For 140, you have here 100, so that means 2 times 50, so that means 2 hiqqah, and 40, so 1 bint laboon. And you continue like that with this rule of 50 and 40. And it might happen sometimes that you have the choice. I don't have an example here, but it might happen that you have the choice. I don't know. Just mathematics after that. So now we come to the cattle. There is no zakah on fewer than 30 cattle, so that's the nisab. So the nisab for the camels was 5, because that's the beginning of the zakah. Here the nisab is 30. If there are 30, I should read it in Arabic first. Okay, ولا زكاة من البقر في أقل من 30 فإذا بلغتها ففيها تبيع عجل جذع قد أوفى 2 ثم كذلك حتى تبلغ 40 فيكون فيها مسنة ولا تؤخذ إلا أنثى وهي بنت 4 سنين وهي ثنية فما زاد ففي كل 40 مسنة وفي كل 30 تبيع. Okay, this one is quite easy because you have the nisab at 30. Then if there are 30 to 39 cattle, the zakah is a tabi'a. Tabi'a, that is a young calf over 2 years old, male or female according to mashhur. And so what did he say here? A calf over 2 years old. So yeah, he completed 2 years. He completed 2 years, so he's 3 years actually. And Qadi Abdul Wahhab consider that it's 2 years, but even if not accomplished. So even when he's still in his 2nd year, but has not finished it, you could give this tabi'a. But this is a weaker opinion of the Qadi Abdul Wahhab. And yet the name of the tabi'a comes from tabi'a yatba'u, which means actually following, and they said it's because basically he's following his mother. So that's the name of this this calf. So from 40 to 59, if there are 40 cattle, the zakah is a female and only a female with its second teeth, that is in its 4th year. So that's a musinnah. The name of this one is a musinnah. You give a musinnah between 40 to 59, and so she entered her 4th year. In its 4th year, so she entered the 4th year, and according to the Mu'tamad, and this is according to Mu'tamad, and yeah, and that's the opinion of Ibn Habib, which is a Mu'tamad, and there's the opinion of the Qadi Abdul Wahhab, and another opinion of Ibn Habib that say otherwise about the musinnah, but let's just keep the mu'tamad. That's what is the most important for us. So then the sa'i will force the owner of the cattle to give a musinnah if the owner doesn't have one in his possession, unless the owner gives something better. So for example, a cow which is in her 5th year, for example, which would be better. Still the same rule, you see, that is applied here again, that when you give something better, it's valid. But after that, we have a rule that Ibn Abi Zayd gives us here. For any large number of cattle, the zakah is a female in its 4th year for every 40 cattle, or for every 30 a tabi'a. So basically, for every 30 cows, you give a tabi'a, and for every 40 you give a musinnah. So you would have examples where you have the choice when for example, I don't know, but yeah, I did not write examples, but like for the camels, if you just try to find it, I will not do it right now live because we want to go on with the lesson, but you can look for it and try to find in which situations we might have the choice between giving a certain number of tabi'a and musinnat, or the opposite, because we have quite a lot to cover. So then Ibn Abi Zayd says, ولا زكاة في الغنم حتى تبلغ 40 شاة فإذا بلغتها ففيها شاة جذعة أو ثنية إلى 20 و100 فإذا بلغت 21 و100 ففيها شاتان إلى 200 شاة فإذا زادت واحدة ففيها 3 شياه إلى 300 فما زاد ففي كل 100 شاة ولا زكاة في الأوقاص وهي ما بين الفريضتين من كل الأنعام. Okay, yeah. So sheep and goats. There's no zakah on fewer than 40 sheep and goats. So that's the nisab, 40. If there are from 40 to 120, the zakah is 1 young sheep or goat in its 2nd year. If there are 121 to 200 animals, the zakah is 2 sheep or goats. From 122 to 300, the zakah is 3 sheep or goats. For any larger number, 1 sheep or goat is paid for each 100. So in its second year. So yeah, the first category 40 to 120 is a jad'a or a thaniya. So in the second year, as we said for the camels, if you remember, 121 to 200 2 shah, 201 to 300 3 shia, then 400 to 499 4 shia, and after that 500 to 599 you give 5, 600 to 699 you give 6, 700 to 799 you give 7. Okay, so you had a shah when you enter a new 100. But you see there's difference. For the free shia, we said from 201 to 300, and then wait, I did mistake here. Okay, 122 to 300. Yeah, I think they did a mistake here. فإذا بلغت 21 و100. Okay, so 121, yeah. ففيها شاتان, 2 شا, up to 200. فإذا زادت واحدة ففيها 3 شياه. From 201 to 300, 3 شياه. And then from 300 to 399, sorry, it's 4. Then yeah, and so on and so forth, and then you add 1 for each new 100. But the new 100 will be from the entrance to 99. So 300 to 399, 400 to 499, 500 to 599, and so on and so forth. And this is the opinion of the Jumhur. And for some tabi'een, actually the category like Al-Sha'bi, Al-Hasan al-Basri, Al-Hasan al-Nakha'i, the category will start at the next unit. So they would say it starts at 301 up to 400, and then 401. But the madhab is what I said. So you start when you enter the 100, and then you stop at 99. And then he says, there's no zakah for numbers of animals that are between 2 quarters, waqas. So here, that's one of the 2 opinions. But Imam al-Adawi says the other opinion is rajih among the 2 mashhur. We have 2 mashhur. One is that there is the zakah for the waqs, and there is not, is the second opinion. And this khilaf is especially when you have the khulta, what we will talk right after that. The khulta is when different owners, they gather their beasts, their animals, to make it easier. Because maybe you have only one shepherd for all the beasts, maybe beasts that are belonging to 2, 3, or 4 people, for example. And then you have only one well for all these animals. It's easier also, especially if you are paying someone to have access to the well, and so on. So to make it easier, okay, because you have only one shepherd, so you only pay one person, and so on. And the example is that, for example, the khilaf is, according to the first opinion, if you have Zayd who have 5 camels and Amr who has 9 camels, they should give each one of them 1 shah. So each one, because 5 camels is 1 shah and 9 camels is 1 shah. So they would give the same even if they have a different number, okay? But the second opinion, which is the one we are following, because they owe 2 shah in common, because 5 plus 9 makes is 14, so that's the second category. Okay, the second level in the zakah of the camels, so to speak. They would give 2 shah, so they give the 2 shah, and then one will give back so basically we take the 2 sha, the value of 2 sha, 2 sheep or goat, young sheep goat, and then one will, so let's say one of the two gives both, and then the other will have to give back the value of his share. So here one have 5 camels, the other have 9 camels, so that makes 14. So on 14, one have 5/14, and the other one has 9/14. So based on that, if we say that 2 goats equals 100 euros, for example, so you divide 100, or let's say 140 to make it easier. So one share would be divided by 14, so 140 divided by 14 would be 10 euros. So one would have actually to give 50 euros and the other 90 euros in value. So the one who gave the 2 sha, the other one will give back his share of the 2 sha. I don't know if I explained clearly, but it's easy actually. It's just calculating how much you have of the global zakah that has been given, considering your proportion of the whole livestock. Okay, I hope it's clear how I explained it in English. If it's not, just ask me, and I will write it down, and it will be much easier, I think. So then Ibn Abi Zayd tells us ويجمع الضأن والمعز في الزكاة والجواميس والبقر والبخت والعراب وكل الخليطين فإنهما يترادان بينهما بالسوية ولا زكاة على من لم تبلغ حصته عدد الزكاة ولا يفرق بين مجتمع ولا يجمع بين مفترق خشية الصدقة وذلك إذا قرب الحول فإذا كان ينقص أداؤهما بافتراقهما أو باجتماعهما أخذ بما كان عليه قبل ذلك. Baby calves or camels may not be taken although they are counted For zakah purposes, sheep and goats are taken together, buffalo are taken with cattle, and camels with 2 humps are taken with dromedaries. So we gather all of that. Basically, when we say sheep and goats, sheep, ad-da'n, is basically anything that has wool, and goats is anything that has some kind of hairs or hair. If you look at the goat, you see it doesn't have the same kind of thing. It's not wool. You can see clearly that it's not the same. They have a kind of hair. I don't know if it has a special name in English, but let's say hair. So and there is some saying that it's an ijma', that we gather all these kind of animals that are very close, and others says that it's the mashhur. And all of that is based, the fact that we gather that is based on 3 hadith. One saying, he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ففي كل 40 من الغنم شاه, and the other ففي كل 30 من البقر تبيع, ففي كل 5 من الإبل شاه. And here, when he used, the Prophet ﷺ used the name Ghanam and Baqar and Ibl, in the Arabic language, the different kinds, so the sheep and the goats, or the buffaloes and the cattle and the camels and dromedaries, all of that enter in the actual meaning of the word. So that's why we have this ijma', or some said it's mashhur, because we have a very, very weak opinion of Ibn Lubaba within the madhab. So who says that there would not be this gathering of this different kinds within the species? But some said no, we don't even look at his opinion. It's so isolated, shad and marginal that we don't even look at it. So it's an ijma. Okay, so here, how would we proceed when there is this kind of mixing? Oh, I did not read the Arabic yet. Oh no, yeah, we're still there. Okay, so yeah, different things. For example, someone has goats and sheep. That's the easiest. For example, if you only owe one, for example, you have let's say 60 sheep and goats mixed, and you have 30 and 30 sheep, 30 goats, and you owe one, of course, yeah, then the sa'i has the choice. If one of the two, if you have more sheep than goats or more goats than sheep, then the sa'i will take from the one which is majority. If you owe two, then we take one from each of the two kinds, if each kind reached the nisab. For example, if you owe two, you have 122, for example. At that moment, you owe two. If you have 61 of each kind, then we'll take one and one. But if you have only 20 sheep and 102 goats, at that moment, we take two from the I don't know which one I said you had more. I think I said you have more. You had goats. I think you had 102 goats. So you take the two for the zakah from the goats. And this is the first condition, that it's a nisab and that it's not a wax. When we say that something is a wax, is that it's a number that does not make the category go up. So for instance, in my example, we would take from it, because I said I think 20 sheep and 102 goats. So the 20 sheep here made the zakah go from the category when you owe one to the category when you owe two. But let's say, an example, okay, let's say you have 180 animals, 180. You have 150 goats and 30 sheep. In this situation, the 30 sheep are neither a nisab, because it's less than 40, and they are not making your zakah go from one category to another category. Therefore, we don't take from them, we only take from the goats. I think with this example is quite clear the way it works. And likewise, if it's a wax, so I said 30, but if it would be 45 sheep and 135 goats, we would still take the two from the one which is majority here, the goats, because I said we have two conditions: that it is a nisab, and also that it is not a wax. So if you have the nisab, but it is but it's not a wax, or if it is a wax but it's and it is a nisab, we don't take from it. Okay, so we really want the two conditions to be met. Okay, now if you owe 3 animals, so you have more than 200 sheep and goats, for example, and you have the same number from each one. So you have 100 and let's say 5 goats and 105 sheep, for example. Then it's one of each, and for the third one, the sa'i has the choice. And that's when you have the same number. If you don't have the same number of animals, more sheep than goats or more goats than sheep, then and the small number is a nisab and not a wax, you take a shah from it. If not, we take from the majority. So it's the same rule I just explained to you for the two ones. For the two, the case before, when you owe 2. When you owe 4, then you take 1 shah from each 100 of each type. Yeah, and when because we say 100, and when the 100 is actually divided, you have 50-50, for example, or 40-60. At that moment, for each new, it's either you have the same number of animals, or if there's difference, you take from the majority one. It's always quite the same idea, but you take from the majority when you have one, and if you don't, then you don't. With this kind of difference with the wax and the nisab, which is a little bit more, let's say, technical, but I mean, it's the kind of things, if one day you have to either to explain it or to give the zakah, you have the time to sort of to revise it if you forgot. Yeah. Because it's usually the kind of things you will forget. Yeah. Easily, because we don't need it on a daily basis. So then, yeah, then Ibn Abi Zayd says, okay, I already read the Arabic. 2 owners of herds which are mixed together pay zakah jointly and settle between themselves the share each must pay. That's what I explained to you earlier, but it's explained here in a clearer way, and I think a better English. But if the herd is of one of them does not contain a number of animals subject to zakah, he is not obliged to pay any zakah. When the yearly zakah is nearly due, animals which were mixed together are not to be separated, nor are those which were separate to be mixed, in order to escape paying the full zakah. If the zakah paid is less, because 2 herds were separated or mixed, the herds should be restored to their prior condition. Okay. So, according to the proportion of each one of the owners, we take from him. That's the general rule. Let's take 3 examples. If you have 3 owners, each one has 40 sheep. Then, as a group, they owe 1 shah. So they will, in the end, they will have 1/3. So what will happen? We take 1 shah from one of the 3 owners, and then each one of the 2 others will give 1/3 of the value of this shah. So in the end, each one will have paid 1/3. Now, 2 owners, each one has 36 camels. They must give 1 jad'a So they owe half a jad'a each one. So we give one entire jad'a and then one gives back half to the other. And if you have two owners, one owes 80 and the other owes 40, then they owe one shah, and so it will be 2/3, 1/3. So the conditions for this, let's say, computation or gathering of the animals is that each one has a nisab. Even if the khulta, so khulta is when you gather the animals of different owners, even if the khulta began in the middle of the hawl, so you have your hawl and you started to gather the animals in the middle of it, or during the hawl, doesn't have to be before. If only one of the two has a nisab, then he gives the zakah as if he was alone. Okay, because the other one does not give the zakah, so will not count the zakah of the group and sort of make something that might lead the other one maybe to pay more or to pay less. Because depending on the cases, sometimes when you gather the sheep, the animal generally doesn't have to be only sheep, you would pay more, sometimes you would pay less. Also, the second condition is that each one of the two owners is mukhatab bil-sharia. Basically, he's addressed by the sharia. The sharia is an obligation upon him. So, not a slave. Of course, slaves are subject to the sharia, but here we talk about the zakah. The slaves, because they don't own anything, it's only the sayyid, the master, who owns. So the slave in itself, he doesn't own. Maybe the master will leave him have things. No problem with that, of course. But in the end, it's somehow the real owner would be the master. But that does not mean the master will give the zakah for the animals, because the slave is sort of owning the animals. Yeah. We will have other examples of that. I think we talked about it. When a slave has money, he will not give the zakah on his money. I think we talked about it. So not a disbeliever nor a slave. Of course, the disbeliever has this big khilaf: are they obligated to follow the sharia or not? So in the madhab, yes, they are. It's an obligation, but it's more like it's not always followed. What I mean is that here we will consider the other opinion, the opinion that they are not asked to follow the sharia, even if it's a weaker opinion. Likewise, when we talk about the transactions, on certain occasions, like when a disbeliever, he took money from the Muslims at war, then he doesn't have to give it back. For example, when he becomes Muslim, because at that time it was permissible for him to take it, even if he must follow the sharia. Based on this other opinion, we say that okay, at the moment he was a kafir, he was not obliged to follow the sharia, therefore the money he took from the Muslims is halal for him, therefore he doesn't have to give it back. So in this scenario also, when you have one owner which is Muslim, a free Muslim, and the other one or the other ones are slaves and or kuffar, he will give the zakah as if he was alone. Also, you must have the intention to gather the animals. It's the niyyah of the khulta. You must have this intention. If it just happens like that, like you are in a place and it happens that the animals are gathered together, even if you fulfill then all the 5 conditions, precise more conditions of the khulta, even in this situation, if you don't have the intention in the first place, it will not be a khulta. And also it must be that the animals are of the same jins. So you cannot make a khulta of say sheep and camels, of course. That would not make sense, because now we come to the 5 arkan, we could say, but they say it's conditions actually, but the ones we already mentioned are also conditions. So I don't know, they really talk about 5 conditions, which are the ones I will give you now, but the one I just gave you are also conditions. So I don't know why they did not say that we have 5 plus 4, 9 conditions. Allahu A'lam, I don't know. Anyway, so the first of these 5 is that the shepherd is the same, or you have one shepherd for each I think herd, we call that, each group, but they aid one each other, and sort of, even if you have one for each one, they sort of work together. So if it's as if there was one, or maybe because the herd is now so big, so they would alternatively go to this side or this side to gather the animals, or to do this and that, and to give the food and this kind of things. The second condition is that you have one male. The male here is we mean the male which is how you call that in English? Wait, yeah, that copulates with the female in order to have small sheep and goats and camels and this and so on. So that you have one same male for the herd, or you have 2 males, but they are used for both, so the same thing as the shepherd. The third one is that you use the same source of water, meaning if you are like renting a well, the two owners are renting the same well, for example. So you are sharing the water. Or if you don't have a well, for example, you have this kind of big, not buckets, but big recipients, you know, and they are used for all the sheep or all the camels, and the water is paid by both owners. And the fourth and the fifth conditions is that the place where the animals sleep in the daytime and nighttime is the same. And Ibn al-Qasim, and this is the Rajih, said that it's enough that the majority of these 5 conditions are gathered in order to a khulta be a khulta. So 3 would be enough. So if you have the same shepherd and the place where the animals are sleeping by night and by day is the same, at that moment it's enough. You have a khulta. If one of the 3 conditions that we're talking about is that the male is for the two herd, the 2 groups, then they of course must be of the same jins, sheep or goats, because of course sheep and goats cannot normally, I think, cannot copulate one with the other. So anyway, if one of the 3 conditions you gathered is to have one and same male, you must have only sheep or only goats. But if you don't have this condition, you might have sheep and goats all together in the khulta. And then we come to the last thing Ibn Abi Zayd said here, which is that the khulta or the separation is not done with the intention to flee from the zakah. because first it's haram according to the mashhur, and also in the end, as Ibn Zayd said, we will act as if there was no khulta, or as if you did not separate the animals. If the result of it means that you would pay less. So that would be in two cases. If you do this, if you gather or separate the animals very close to the hole, at that moment we just do as if nothing happened, and we take the zakah according to the prior let's say state of the how it was. Basically, you had 40 sheeps, you gathered them with 40 other sheeps, that makes 80, that makes one sheep, one shah for the whole group instead of one shah per person. If you did that close to the hole, then we consider that you did that to flee the zakah. So we take one shah from each one of the two groups. That's the first thing. But if you did that further from the end of the hole, maybe 3-4 months before, then if there's a qarina, something that indicates that you did that with the intention to flee the zakah, or if you say that yes, I did that because I wanted to flee the zakah, so you say that you did this thing, for this forbidden thing, because maybe you're doing tawbah, and this is a good thing. In this situation, we take the zakah as it should have been the case. For example, if you have two owners and each one of them owns 101 animals, the result of it is 202. That means they would have to pay together 3 shiyah. But if they separate their animals, they fall back to the first category, and that would mean they would have to pay 1 shah each one of them. So that would make them save half a shah per owner, because they owed 3 shia, and in the end they gave 2, so that makes 1 shah less divided by 2, half a shah that they actually won by doing that. So if they did that on purpose, and we know that, or they did that close to the end of the hole, then we will take in the end 3 shia from both of them. And the opposite example would be like 3 owners, and each one of them has 40 animals, so they would have to give 1 shah each one of them. But then they decide to gather them, and instead of giving 3 shia, they would only have to give 1 shah, because 40 plus 40 plus 40 makes 120, which is still the first category. So in this case also we would take more than we would take basically what they would have to give as separated groups if they did that, and we think that they might have done that on purpose, or they say that they did that. Then so ولا تؤخذ في السلقة وتعد على رب الغنم، ولا تؤخذ العجاجيل في البقرة، ولا الفصلان في الإبل وتعد عليهم، ولا يؤخذ تيس ولا حرمة ولا الماخض ولا فحل الغنم، ولا شاة العلف، ولا التي تربي ولدها، ولا خيار أموال الناس، ولا يؤخذ في ذلك عروض ولا ثمن، فإن أجبره المصدق على أخذ الثمن في الأنعام وغيرها أجزاءه إن شاء الله. ولا يسقط الدين زكاة الحب ولا تمر ولا ماشية. Okay, so a baby sheep or goat is not to be taken to pay zakah. Nevertheless, it is counted in numbering the owner's herd. Baby calves or camels may not be taken, although they are counted in numbering the herd. Also exempt from being taken as zakah are a billy goat, a skinny old female, a pregnant female, a stud-made sheep or goat, a sheep or goat being fattened for slaughter, a mother nursing its offspring, or the best things a man owns. For zakah on animals, one may not collect merchandise or the price of the animals in place of the animal. But if the collector forces the owner into having the price of the animal instead, that suffices for the owner's zakah, insha'Allah. A debt does not exempt one from paying zakah on grain, dates, or animals. So here he gathered basically here anything that cannot be taken for the zakah. So not the young, not the one that are breastfeeding. I don't know if we talk about breast for animals, but you see what I mean. We don't take the worst ones because I mean among the animals, the bad animals, the ones that are maybe sick or that have, let's say, one leg less or these kind of things. We don't take anything of that. And we don't take the best also because we respect the owner. There's a weak opinion saying that we don't take the male of the goat males. I don't know the name of that. So the male of the goat, but that's a weak opinion. So the strong one is that we take from them. We take them. And okay, if the owner only has good or he only has bad animals, then he will have to get middle range ones, except if the sa'i considers that it's enough to take one with a defect, with aib, what we call aib, I think is a defect in English. Let me check that. Flow? No. Default? No, not default. Is when something is by default. So no. Yeah, defect. Yeah, that's defect. Okay, I was right in this one. Okay, yeah, it's not permissible, meaning makruh, to give the zakah of your livestock or your farm product in gold or silver. And in urud, yeah, it's not valid in urud. With no khilaf, with no divergence of opinion. There's no khilaf in the madhab that it's not permissible to give the zakah in urud. And urud includes nowadays money. That's something we have to have in mind, is that when we talk about nowadays money, so anything which is not gold and silver, it's like tables and chairs, except that sometimes it's considered as a kind of ayn, a kind of real money, but generally it is urud. In the zakah it's considered as urud, and in the riba it's between. We will see that later, but in the riba it has a middle status, meaning that you it would be makruh, for example, to take €2 for €1, yeah, €1, to sell €1 for 2, for example, or the opposite, to sell 2 for 1. So because it's between, so they did not say that it's from Imam Malik also. It's not haram, but it's not also really permissible, so that's why they say it's makruh. Likewise, the riba and nasi'a or nasa. So you could sell €1 now for €1 later, or for €2 later. If a sa'i takes by force in ayn, meaning in gold or silver, then it will be valid. But it's also valid according to the, because when you say makruh, it's also valid, you know. So that doesn't change anything. It's just one small opinion they mentioned in the shuruh, because according to opinion that it's impermissible to give, that they say that, but if the sa'i takes it by force, then it's valid. It's interesting because in the question of zakat al-fitr, as you know, in the madhab it's not permissible, it's not valid actually, to give it in money, including gold and silver. That's what we talk when you talk about money in fiqh. So it will not be valid to give you the value of zakat al-fitr in gold and silver. But there's a fatwa of Ibn Arafah. He said, but if the sa'i took it in gold and silver, then it's valid. It's probably based on that. That doesn't mean that in nowadays we would be allowed to take the fatwa of Ibn Arafah, even if in the end it would not be permissible, because it's a weak opinion within the school, what Ibn Arafah mentioned. And even his student, Imam al-Burzuli, which is a great Maliki scholar also, said that this fatwa is not acceptable according to the madhab. So even there, you see that it's only when the sa'i takes it. He takes it. It's not like you give it intentionally. He takes it from you. That was just a small digression. Then Imam al-Adawi here adds some few points, complementary points, before we enter the question in the question of the zakat al-fitr in itself. The first one is that you must give the zakah with the intention. If not, it's invalid. And for the mad person and the children, it's the wali who will have the intention when giving the zakah. We talk about very small children, because children, when they reach a certain age, they can have the intention of the ibadah, of course. Except when you are forced to give the zakah. For example, the sa'i. When the sa'i comes and takes the zakah by force, then even if you don't have the intention, it will be valid. You must not give it elsewhere than the place where you live, and we already explained that in more details, depending if there are or not pools here, or if there are or not pools elsewhere, or if the pools elsewhere are more needy than the pools that you have in your region. So go back to the last, I think last lesson or 2 lessons ago. You have to give the zakah on the day you must give it. It can be one day or maybe 2 days later. But if you delay, it will be haram but valid. Haram but valid. Then you must give it to one of the 8 kinds of people who can receive the zakah. The first kind being the faqir. So the faqir is the one who does not own enough for him to live 1 year. And the miskin is the one who does not possess anything. For these two, there must be Muslim, free and not Hashimi. The Muslim, we will see, there's the exception of when there are spies or mu'allaf, someone you hope will enter Islam. And for the Hashimi, we don't give him, it's not permissible to give him the zakah, the Hashimi from Bani Hashim, when he is receiving his money from Bayt al-Mal. And if he does not receive money from Bayt al-Mal, because Bayt al-Mal has a share, a part of the money of Bayt al-Mal must go to the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when Bayt al-Mal does not work correctly, when they do not do their job, we will give him, first, if he does not receive from Bayt al-Mal, and if not receiving from Bayt al-Mal makes him afflicted by poverty. In this situation, we will give to the Hashim. The third category is the one working for the zakah. Whether be he a sa'i, someone collecting the zakah, or he might be someone giving the zakah to the poor people. It might be someone organizing from the gathering of the money or the livestock or the crop, let's say the farm product, gathering and sort of working the administration of Bayt al-Mal. So they would be paid from the zakah. They would receive the zakah. Not if he's a kafir or not if he's a Hashimi, also same thing. And but these people working for the zakah, they would receive from the zakah even if they are rich persons, even if they are rich. The fourth category are the disbelievers that you want to bring to Islam, but if you give them and then in the end they do not enter Islam, we take back from them. Also, when you want the fifth category, to free a Muslim slave, even if the slave have defects, or if he's handicapped or these kind of things. We don't look at it here. We can give the zakah for that. It's fine. The sixth category, the one who has a debt, and a debt that that could lead to being put in jail. So it's a debt that is owed to human people, excluding by that the kafara, for example, and what you would have to give in the Hajj, these kind of things, Jaza as-Zayd, all of that. So it's really like money you owe to people. Even the debt of zakah is not counted here. It's really money you owe to people or institutions or these kind of things. And that his debt is not for the fasad, for something which is impermissible or something fasad generally, something seen as wrong in the Sharia. And also then, if he does not possess something that would be a counter value of his debt, because in this case maybe it would, let's say if someone owes 1,000 euros to someone, we can give him 1,000 euros. It's possible, from the Bayt al-Mal or someone who has a lot of zakah to give. But if that person has goods that are not of first need, he doesn't need them, he could live without them, that includes a lot of things, especially nowadays. People tend to own dozens and dozens of things. So anything he possesses which is not, let's say, essential, or which is not important for life, we would look at the value all of that, and we would say, okay, you owe 1,000 euros. 10,000 euros, sorry. You owe 10,000 euros, but you have a computer, you have a TV, you have a beautiful couch, you have this thing and this, that. So we take the value of all of that, and we say the computer is I don't know 1,000 worth, and the couch is 2,000 worth, and this thing is that. In the end, let's say it's 5,000, the value of all of that. Then we say, so now you could sell all of that and give back 500 to the one who has debt, to whom you owe a debt. So therefore, we only give you the 5 over thousands for you to pay the people you owe money to. The 7th category is the mujahid, the one fighting in jihad. So it could be during the jihad when he's like not actually fighting, or also on the way to the fight, meaning he's traveling maybe from let's say from Granada to Cordoba when it was still Muslim, from Granada to Cordoba, because they were defending Cordoba, for example. May Allah give us back Al-Andalus. Amin. So, and even if he's rich, he can receive the zakah, and the zakah can be given also to buy the weapons, and to buy even the not only the swords, but it could be the arrows for the bows, or nowadays it would be the bullets, you know, all of that, the ammunitions, anything really that is used in the fight. But this mujahid, he must be free, he must be a man, he must be Muslim, he must be mukallaf, and he must be able to fight, and he cannot be Hashimi. These are all the conditions, because you might have disbelievers fighting for the Muslims. If you pay them, for example, we're not talking about if it's permissible or not, but we're talking about here if they can receive the zakah or not. Yeah, here there are some opinions in the school saying that inside the jihad, another kind of jihad is actually the talab al-ilm, or the mufti, or the qadi, and this kind of things. Is a way, it's kind of fi sabilillah. It's not jihad, sorry, but it's more like fi sabilillah, because we talk about the jihad, but if we go back to the Quran and probably the hadith, okay, it's fi sabilillah. But according to the rajih, tullab al-ilm cannot receive it, except if they are, of course, poor people. If you have a poor talib al-ilm, he can receive the zakah, no problem. But that's because he is poor, not because he is a talib al-ilm. Are included in the mujahideen, the murabitin, who when they are in the ribat. The ribat, it's at the borders of the Muslim of the Darul Islam. You have people guarding. Basically, back in time, you had castles. Most often, I think, castles, and you had people inside protecting the borders of the Muslim territory. So these people are like mujahideen. It's actually, we will see that in the chapter on jihad, but it's a great reward to be among the murabitin. And we also give to the spy, and here the spy, he can be, he can be kafir. If the spy is a disbeliever, we would give him the zakah. And here the spy is really someone which the imam has chosen and told him to go to the kuffar and to spy them for the Muslims. So this spy, he will receive from the zakah. That's like the exception with the people that we hope will enter Islam, but the exception for disbelievers to receive the zakah. But you will hear a lot of strange opinions. Even some people saying that yeah, because now Muslims are living in the West and they receive like health care from the state and this kind of things, blah blah blah, then we should count giving money to the kafir state as part of the zakah as valid, and well, this really it has no ground in the Sharia, and it's basically going against I think all of the four madhahib and even maybe more. But you might hear eventually such an opinion. And the last category, the eighth one, is the stranger, the one who is actually traveling, or the traveler we could say, and he's in need. He needs money to go back home. So we would give him money and maybe also food, because among the zakah is not only money. It could be also an animal. We could give him a sheep, for him to eat on the way back home. Anyway, he can receive the zakah with conditions, even if he's rich home, even if he has money home, but he is in need at that moment in his travel. So the first condition is that he is in need of it, and this need is we give him enough to reach a place where he will be able to come back home by his own means. That might include if he's, let's say, someone went to the desert and he cannot go back home, then we give him enough to, and that person has a job that he can do in any place, maybe repairing stuff, or maybe he's among the people building things, so he knows how to build like a how do you call that? Mason, yeah, of course, a mason, for example. So he's in the desert, there's nothing, he cannot work, he has no money, he has no food. So we give him from the zakah enough for him to reach the next town where he will be able to work, and from here to go on with his travel back home. That's what we give him. The second condition is that his travel is halal. Because if his travel is not halal, we don't give him anything, except if we fear that he would die. But here then it's the darura that makes us give him money. It's not anymore him being in a need. It's him being in a darura. He would die if we don't give him anything. And the third condition is for the one that is rich home. For this one, there's another condition, is that he does not find anyone that is ready to lend him money or food or what would be sufficient for him to come back home. And if this traveler does not come back home in the end, then we will take back from him what we gave him. And I see that it's already 1 hour and 23 minutes, and we have a lot to cover from Zakat al-Fitr. Okay, we will start covering a little bit of it, and yeah. So, وزكاة باب في زكاة الفطر. وزكاة الفطر سنة واجبة فرضها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على كل كبير أو صغير ذكر أو أنثى حر أو عبد من المسلمين صاعا عن كل نفس بصاع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، وتؤدى من جل عيش أهل ذلك البلد من بر أو شعير أو سلت أو تمر أو أقط أو زبيب أو دخن أو ذرة أو أرز. وقيل إن كان العلس قوت قوم أخرجت منه قوت قوم أخرجت منه وهو حب صغير يقرب من خلقة البر. Okay, stop there and we see next. So paying zakat on Eid al-Fitr is an established sunnah. The correct hukum is that it's an obligation, it's not a sunnah mu'akkada, even if it's the opinion here. So the mashhur is that it's an obligation, and it seems that only Ibn Abi Zayd held this opinion. The Fakihani said that it's the mashhur, but it's not the case. So the mashhur is really that it's an obligation, not a sunnah mu'akkada. But we could say first that the Zakat al-Fitr is the fact that you give to a Muslim the food for his Eid al-Fitr, and it's a sa' of food, of the base food, the most let's say majority food of this place. So even as it says, it's an established sunnah prescribed by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for every Muslim, young or old, male or female, free or slave. Each person must give a sa' at the standard of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam of the most common staple, most common staple of the people of his locale, whether wheat, barley, salt, dates, cottage cheese, raisins, millet, sorghum or rice. He said cottage cheese, but I'm not so sure. Cottage cheese. Let me check what it looks like. Cottage cheese. I think it's no, I don't think it's cottage cheese. It's more like very, say, like dried milk that has no more, that you remove the grease from it, the greasy part from it, and I don't know, I would have to check how it's made. It's drying but not pressed some way, remains, no. Okay, I don't know. I mean, I'm really not sure it's the cottage cheese. I'm really not sure. Allahu a'lam. So where's my translation again? Not here. Yeah. One opinion is that alas must be chosen if it's the food of the people. It's a small grain similar to wheat. The reason why it has been made obligatory, the first reason is to purify the one who fasted Ramadan from anything unuseful and that one did and said, and foul language and this kind of things. So it's basically to purify you from anything which is not appropriate in the state of fast. The state of fast doesn't mean that it wipes out your sins. It's something else. It's really for the things which are not to be done during the fast, because we, as we mentioned in the chapter on Siyam, when fasting, one should really pay attention not to talk about worldly matters, all these kind of things, useless things, maybe just chilling, doing nothing. You should at least do a dhikr. So that's a way to purify. To give this zakat al-fitr is a way to purify yourself from these things, and it's also, secondly, a way to feed Muslims, especially in this day, in this fast day. So here the fact that the very first reason why we give the Zakat al-Fitr is not to feed the people. It's like a problem for the person saying that you know, we give the Zakah in money because it's better for the poor people, because that's why Zakat al-Fitr, you know, it's made, it has been established in order to have the poor eat something and you know, be happy for the Eid al-Fitr. And we see that it's not the real reason, the very first reason. It's the secondary reason. So I already said it's an obligation, and it's due for every single Muslim, by or for. So it's not in the categories Ibn Abi Zayd mentioned here. They will not all have to give the zakah themselves. For example, the children, as we'll see, they don't give the zakah. It's the parents that are giving the zakah. For example, the wife does not give the zakah. She can, of course, if she wants, but it's the husband who would give the zakah for her. Slaves, of course, it's the master who will give the zakah. Only the Zahiris, so people from the Zahir madhab, held the view that the slave gives the zakah himself, but he gives the zakah. So, who gives the zakah in the end? It's among these people someone who has enough for the day of the Eid, so he has the qut, meaning the food, the sufficient food for this day, for himself and anyone he has to give the nafaqah, to feed, basically. And then if he has more than that, he will have to give it. If he not only has part of a sa' and not a full sa', he will give part of a sa'. And of course, if he can give more, he will have to. The one who does not have anything more than what is enough for him, he finds someone that might lend him a sa', for example, or money to buy what would allow him to give the zakat al-fitr, and he thinks he will be able to reimburse that person, then he will be obliged to borrow this zakah. He will oblige to borrow the zakah. The sa', I think we already talked about it. It's basically 4 mud. Yeah, we talked about it, and it's 2 liter and 40 millimeters. 2 liters and 40 millimeters, around 2 liters and 40 millimeters. It's disliked, makruh, to give more than 1 sa' if what you added, first you're sure that you added to it, and that you did this, that you added this to the sa' with the intention sort of to do something which is better than the Sharia. In this situation, it's makruh, and it's really, really bad, you know, to think that you will do something better than what, not better than the Sharia, but better than what is obliged. Because better than the Sharia, that would be a greater issue, actually. That would be a much greater issue. It's an obligation to give from the common staple of the people where you live, and it's the common staple of the people during Ramadan. not during the whole year, because maybe some people during Ramadan they eat something else, or maybe depending on when Ramadan falls. Maybe if it falls on in March, for example, people might not be eating the same thing, especially in the past. Nowadays, you know, we have everything every time, but especially, of course, not everywhere in the world. I think in places in Africa or remote places where they don't have all of these products coming from all over the world with very polluting by very polluting ways through ships and planes and trucks. Anyway, that's something else. They might still have this seasoning of the food. So it's really the food which is eaten during Ramadan, and it's among the 9 kinds of food that are mentioned. So wheat, barley, salt, dates, cottage cheese, raisins, millet, sorghum, or rice. Even if cottage cheese, as I told you, I'm not sure if it's the correct thing in English. It doesn't look like the way they described it. Or the alas also is, as Ibn Abi Zayd mentioned, if you don't have any of the 9, then the alas would be fine. If you eat something which is better than what the other people in your place are eating, then you can give from it, even if it's not the most common staple food of your people. And if someone can only give what is lesser in quality because he's poor, then it's valid also. Not if he's giving this lesser in quality because he's eating it the whole year and during Ramadan, but the reason is not because he is poor, but because he's sort of, you know, fighting his nafs. So he wants to eat something worse than people sort of, you know, way of tazkiyat al-nafs. So that would not be valid. He would have to give from the common staple of the people. And this is what Imam al-Ushhuri mentioned. So you have 5 cases with this question of the most common staple and so on, and the 9 kinds. So the first case is the 9 kinds of food are present in your place, and each one of the 9 are eaten in the same quantity. So none is most common. Then you have the choice. Second case, the 9 are present, but one is dominating. People eat, let's say, in China, people mostly eat rice. They might eat things made out of wheat or made out of something else, but the dominant one is rice. So it's an obligation for them to give from the dominant one, except if they want to give from something better. Now the question is, what is considered as better? I did not find anything precise here. I did not find, for example, an order saying that wheat is better than barley, which is better than salt, which is better than this, which is better than that. Until now, I did not find. If you heard anything, or if you find a nas on it, please share it. And I hope to find a text one day. But I think that generally wheat is seen as better than barley and salt, I think. But I don't know where does like dates and raisins stand, for example. Knowing that, for example, dates is really I feel that it's nice, so I really want to see if it's better than the others, even if it's more expensive. But in our context, where people, if you did it, you might have seen that when you give people wheat, they are not so happy because they want money. But we don't care, you know. Our madhab is the madhab, so if they are not happy with wheat, they can still sell it or exchange it or whatever, you know. And actually wheat is good, so they should just be happy and eat it. If they are not happy, they should just check their priorities, I think, you know. Anyway, that's another debate, but giving dates would be great because everyone likes dates, you know. You can even offer dates to people generally, you know, something which is sweet. And yeah, so I really want to see if dates would be considered as better than wheat or rice, for example. The third situation, they are all present, the 9 kinds, or only some kinds among the 9. And the iqtiyat, so the most, or the, let's say, or the staple of the people is something else. At that moment, you have the choice among the kinds, the 9 kinds, which are present. And if there's only one, let's say you are in a country where the only kind among these 9 things, let's say in the desert, for example, they only have dates and meat and milk. What happens? Or I've seen also like some tribes in Africa, they only eat, that's quite disgusting, but milk, blood, and sometimes the cow when the cow dies, or the cow is too old to serve anything. If you heard about the Maasai warriors, it's a tribe, and that's what they eat. They eat the blood directly from the living animal. That's quite disgusting, but and it's of course not permissible because the blood is a najasa. So let's say you are in the desert, there's only milk, meat and dates, so it would be an obligation for you to give dates. The fourth case, none of them are present and people are eating something else, like these Maasai guys I was talking about. So in such a case you would have to give like in milk, because milk is halal, so you would give in milk or in meat. It's not valid to give by something which is lesser in quality than what is dominant, as I mentioned, but permissible and valid to give something which is better. So I'm just repeating what I already said. The master will give for his slave. Yeah, okay, that's the nas here. So ويخرج عن العبد سيده والصغير لا مال له يخرج عنه والده ويخرج الرجل زكاة الفطر عن كل مسلم تلزمه نفقته وعن مكاتبه وإن كان لا ينفق عليه لأنه عبد له بعض ويستحب إخراجها إذا طلع الفجر من يوم الفطر ويستحب الفطر فيه قبل الغدو إلى المصلى وليس ذلك في الأضحى ويستحب في العيدين أن يمضي من طريق ويرجع من أخرى. That's the end of the nas, and I will take let's finish. I think that will be a long dars. Sorry, anyway, if you are tired, I see there's only one person live. If you're tired and you don't want to, you know, just you can stop there, and but you will have to make up the rest. Okay, so the translation first. A master pays the zakah for his slave, and if a minor does not have enough wealth, his father pays for him. So even okay, if he possesses it, even if it's for trade, so even if someone buys and sells slaves, he'll have to pay the zakah. Even if he buys slaves in order to rent the slaves. You would give also if the slave is actually fleeing, but you hope to get him back. Likewise, if someone stole your slave and you hope to get back one day, and if you had no hope to get it back, and then after years, for example, he comes back, or you find the one who stole it anyway, you will give the zakah for each single year that has elapsed. And we give also for the mudabbar, for al-walad, for the al-mabi' bil-khiyar, so the slave which has been sold by khiyar, so you sell it and the person has the choice for a time. He has a choice. He says if he's happy with the slave or not, and he can give it back to you if he's unhappy. You give for him also. And for the servant, the slave servant is the one who is what would one yarqubuhu, so the one who is benefiting from the slave, he will give for it the zakat al-fitr for it. For the slave of the slave, because a slave can own a slave, there is no zakat al-fitr, not at all. So not on the slave who is master, and not on the master of the slave which is the master of the other slave. So there's no zakah on at all for the slave of the slave. We don't give the zakat al-fitr for him. And for the muba'ad, which is basically a slave which has been partially freed. So let's say half of your slave is freed because it was owned by you and someone else, and someone else freed, said, okay, this part is not mine anymore, he's free from this part. Okay, so anyway, the muba'ad, the one who is only partially slave and not completely free, the person who owns part of it, he will give a part of a sa' corresponding to the part he owns of that slave. And likewise, if a slave is owned by many people, each one will give a part of a sa'. The father gives, okay, a man pays the zakah on Eid al-Fitr for all his dependents and for any slave whom he has given a writ permitting him to pay for his freedom, the mukatab. So all the kind of slaves, as long as they are still yours, even if he is not a dependent, since he is still his slave. So the father gives for the son that has no money, meaning that if the son has money, we take from the money of the son to pay the zakah. From the one who reached puberty, we don't give for him. Okay, he can here. Maybe he reached puberty, but he cannot earn a living. We still give for him. Once he can earn a living, we don't give for him anymore. But if we decide to give for him, yeah, because generously, then we must tell him, okay, I am giving the zakat al-fitr for you. And at that moment, it's an obligation to tell it to him, because it's like the niyyah. Because we said the zakah, you need to have the niyyah. So here, to tell him that replaces the intention. For the daughter, we will give for her the zakat al-fitr even after puberty, and as long as she will not be married and the dukhul happened. The dukhul meaning she and the husband entered behind closed doors. That's the dukhul. Or that she is ready for the dukhul and she asked for it. Let's say she reaches puberty and or she's married even 20 years old or any time, even later, whatever. Then she says the contract was done, and after that she says, I'm ready to come and live with you, my husband. At that moment the husband must give the zakat al-fitr. And generally, as Ibn Zayd said, anyone you have to give the nafaqah for him, you will give the zakat al-fitr. That includes the parents and the children. The parents, when they are poor, you give for them. That includes the slaves, as we said, the wives, even the wife which has been divorced, but it's a raj'i divorce. She is still in the iddah of the talaq al-raj'i. We will see later what it means. And even if he's rich, but not if the talaq is ba'in. Talaq ba'in means you cannot take her back. You must have a new contract to take her back, and this even if she is pregnant, because we will see later in the chapter on nafaqah that when a woman is pregnant, she still has the right to be how you say that, the husband still have to pay for her house or apartment because she's pregnant. Also, we must give the zakat al-fitr for the wives of the slaves, even if they are free. And we must also give for the servant, if a slave, of course, of any person, we must give the nafaqah. So if the parents have a slave which is their servant, assisting them, for example, especially when they're old, of course, but even if they are not old, we must give the zakat al-fitr for this slave also. So someone who has a big family might have to give a lot of zakat al-fitr. Yeah, it's recommended. So mustahab to give from the fajr on the day of the fitr, if you find someone. If not, you take the sa', you take the zakat al-fitr, you put it aside, you keep it, and it's enough to have the mustahab. You said this part is the zakah, you put it somewhere, and this is enough for you to have the mustahab if you don't find someone to give it to. So that might be useful in the West, where it's not always so easy to find someone between the fajr and the time of the prayer. Now comes the time of obligation, which is because Ibn Zayd does not talk about it. The obligation of giving it starts from the Maghrib or the Fajr. We have two strong opinions. So from the Maghrib or from the Fajr. Two strong opinions. But I will check further, because Imam al-Adawi and al-Sawi, they don't talk about any of the two opinions being stronger than the other one. Not even a Dardir, but I sort of remember that the opinion that Fajr is the mashhur, that it's stronger. But I will double check. So don't write anything for the moment, just wait, but I check. It's valid to give it 2 days before, and it's still an obligation even if you did not give it before the Maghrib at the end of the day of Eid al-Fitr. So it's valid to give it 2 days before. The actual time starts at the Maghrib or the Fajr before the Eid al-Fitr, so at the end of Ramadan, and the end of the time of it is the Maghrib of the same day. So it's an obligation to give it first, to give it before the Maghrib. Meaning the Maghrib at the end of the day of Al-Eid, at the end of the day. So it's haram to delay it after that. But if you delay it, it's still an obligation to give it. Still an obligation to give it. It would be as a sadaqah, it will not be zakat al-fitr anymore because you're not anymore Eid al-fitr. And okay, that would be an obligation for the person who would be obligated to give the zakah, and the person for whom it would be mandub to give the zakat al-fitr, it would be mandub to give it after the maghrib. And this zakat al-fitr, we give it to the free Muslims, poor or very poor, so faqir or miskin, and even if they own a nisab, for the poor people, meaning because we said that the miskin, he does not have anything, he does not own anything, but the poor one, he owns. Maybe he might be owning a nisab, but if that nisab is not enough for him to live a whole year, he can receive the zakat al-fitr. You can give it also to the close your close relatives, but only when you don't have to give the nafaqah. So people you don't have to give them nafaqah. That includes, for example, the wife with the husband. The wife can give the husband the zakat al-fitr, and she can actually give also the normal zakah. But I think I already said that before. Same thing as we already discussed, when there are no poors where you live. You send it to the closest place where you will find poor people, and the fee or maybe the salary you will have to give to the people transporting this zakah will have to be taken from something else. You cannot take from the sa' of all the many sa' that you have to give to pay them. You must take their salary or the fees the people are taking or whatever, from another source. And in case you give your zakat al-fitr to the al-imam al-adl, to the just let's say governor, or the just imam, or the just khalif, as it is mandub to do, actually. That's the preferred way to give the zakah, to give it to the authority. Then he will, of course, he will have the charge to move it from a place to another, depending where you have poor peoples. But he will have the choice when it comes to the payment of the fees or the salaries of the people transporting the zakah. He might take it from the zakat al-fitr itself, so that's the difference with you and I, for example. And he can take also this amount from the fay. The fay is the goods that are taken, let's say, from the battleground, or that are found in the Dar al-Harb, and are not the result of the jizya, for example, or any of these things. It's something which is taken from the disbelievers in their lands. And then he said, I think I read that the preferred time to pay this zakah is at sunrise of Eid al-Fitr. To take breakfast before going to the Salah grounds is preferred on this day. So breakfast here would be preferably an unfair number of dates: 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. But if you don't find it, you can just take anything. But not on Eid al-Adha. On Eid al-Adha, as you know, we wait for the Udhiyah. So after the prayer, we wait for the Udhiyah, and then it's preferable to eat after that, and to eat from the I think the liver or the kidney. The kidney always mix between the two. So I think we have one liver and two kidneys. So the one we only have is, I think, the liver. So yeah, the liver. Yeah. The one we eat, I think the kidney we don't eat it. I'm not sure. I always mix, sorry, between the names, kidney, liver. Which one is which? The kabid, basically in Arabic, the kabid, and that's the preferable thing. And on both feet, it's preferable to go to the salah grounds by one way and return by another. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وسلم تسليما. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. That's a long lesson, but I really wanted to finish the chapter. So do not expect me to be ready at all next week. Honestly, I don't feel it will be any way possible, even if I will try, but I don't think I will do it. So inshallah in 2 weeks, so inshallah the 24th, then as I told you, beginning of March, of April, sorry, I will have holidays. I will use this week of holidays to prepare as much lessons as possible, because after that we only have April, and so let's say 4 to 5 lessons in April, depending, and then we will have 2 lessons in May, and then it's Ramadan. At least the very beginning of Ramadan, I don't think I will give you any lessons. Firstly, because it's not easy, because Ramadan is very, with the long days, it's quite complicated to be concentrated at the end of the day to give a lesson. But I did it last year, so maybe I will see. We will see. But anyway, I will use Ramadan, as I told you, to as I have holidays, to prepare a lot of lessons, inshallah, until the end of the Risala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.